this over.
Mr. Mayor, you mind using the clock?
They will honor our. You may
Yes.
be excused if you would like, ma'am.
My name is Jim Turner, and this is a very important issue for a number of reasons. One is the trust that we have in the people that work in City Hall, and the other, of course, is in dealing with the water itself. I'm still not very satisfied with the response I'm getting on how things work in City Hall. I don't think we've got a problem with just a few bad apples in City Hall. This isn't that type of situation. What we have here are two areas that need to be really looked at and addressed, and so far don't seem to have even made it onto the radar screen as fully as they should. One, we seem to have a series of systemic problems that don't have cross-checks, checks and balances. You have a system where things are supposed to go, but you don't have an additional outside way of looking at things to make sure that that happens. That needs to change. At the same time, we have a cultural problem within City Hall that seems to be acceptable to have mistakes like this. These are the most glaring, the biggest, but it is a culture of not doing everything that should be done and then saying, it's okay. There's not really much in the way of consequences that the public can see. And we are treating council and the public in a way that's not going to build trust. There's a culture there on how we deal with these issues that we'll handle it, we can take care of it, and then not bringing full disclosure to a lot of this stuff, like on the furniture issue and a few others. There's some questions I've asked I still don't have answers on that should be able to have answers. There's a culture that needs to get changed within City Hall on how these get dealt with. That's a very tough thing to do, and it's not something I can explain in a 5-minute talk up here. But what I'm seeing is going to be creating more of the same issue. Culture is kind of like a bad apple barrel. It creates bad apples. And we've got a culture right now that is taking some really good people and having to do some really stupid, illogical, unproductive things. And because of that, we have problems we're seeing today. Second thing on water, no matter what we look at, one of the things that needs to be clear, and one of the things that we've discussed before, is we need to be very wary of going with any more surface water sources. Surface water tends to have a very high loss, lots of evaporation, and most of the proposed surface water projects I've heard about are more or less taking and robbing one group of people downstream for the benefit of the people upstream. We have to be careful that we don't get into a situation like that, no matter what water source we're looking at and whether it's north of here, south of here, east of here, or west of here. Surface water is a very limited, scarce resource, and once we start playing that game, we're going to be creating a water war. We don't need to do that. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
I would like to add one thing, Mr. Mayor.
Come forward, JB.
And I'm sorry, it's okay, I can get straight.
You all right?
Yeah. I'm sort of glad I came to the council this morning about the water, because I knew he was going to be talking about water. But he was talking about you being embarrassed about the situation, and I know that we need to do all we can do to try to bring water, because water is a worldwide issue now. It's not just a San Angelo issue, it's a wide issue everywhere. But my point is, you said the council was embarrassed. I'm embarrassed too, and I'm quite sure a lot of other people in St. Louis are embarrassed when I haven't watered my grass for 3 years now. And when I can't drink the water in my house and have to go buy a bottle of water. That's embarrassing. That's what's embarrassing to me. So I'm asking to take these things under consideration. Because someday you're going to be old as me on a fixed income. It might be wider than mine, but I'm trying to say is, after a while, we're going to all be in the same boat about this water. and we need to do something, and that decent water that we can drink, that we can smell, that I can water my grass with again. I thank you for the council meeting. I'm sorry I can't talk about the issue that you're talking about because I don't have enough information. I've been involved. But carry on. But always keep us in mind too. We get embarrassed too. Thank you.
Thank you, JB. Any other public comment? Come forward, please, sir. State your name and you got 5 minutes.
Good morning, council. My name is Steve Salmon. I spoke to you about probably a month ago when we were talking about water. And I support the idea, and have for a number of years, the idea of a partnership between cities of West Texas, because starting in '95, I realized that other cities were way ahead of us in the search for water. And it was going to be our lifeline. Without water, the city can't grow, ASU can't grow. We're going to spend a hell of a lot of money, pardon my French, on the most beautiful park in the world and not have water for people to come look at. I do have concerns that we're spending money for a probable surface water project that may be 20 or 30 years down the road, if it ever happens. Plus the fact that we'll spend the money for a 100-mile pipeline. I think we need to be looking in the partnership for nearer term, nearer future water supplies. And I encourage you and I encourage city staff to do that. I was on the Water Advisory Board. I got off the Water Advisory Board because I felt like it wasn't doing anything. We got what city staff wanted us to have. We didn't get anything else. You have one engineering firm to build the water treatment plant that we're currently looking at. That's because the Water Advisory Board got one engineering firm recommended out of 4 or 5. We didn't make the recommendation. The city staff made it before it got to us. So encouraged to look for nearer term, closer water supplies than a reservoir that's 20 or 30 years out in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Salmon. Come forward, please. State your name, please, ma'am.
My name is Billy DeWitt, and I just want to say, first of all, that I appreciate all the work that all of y'all do, and I know this is not an easy task. I'm going to approach this from a little bit different point, because we know San Angelo is a water-deprived community, and we know that we're going to have to invest money to find us some water resources. I lived and worked away from San Angelo for 10 years, and I wanted to come back here. So I'm here because I want to be, and I want water. So I want to be able to water my lawn. But the thing that concerns me, I guess, is that almost since the first of the year, I've been reading in the paper about, in the city council agenda, calling for the discipline or termination or whatever of our city manager. I used to be in recruiting, so I know we invested a lot of money in recruiting him to San Angelo. And I just get the impression that for whatever reason, we don't want to work with him, or you don't as a council. And I think y'all need to reconsider that, because we invested a lot to bring him here. And when I hear us, a previous council meeting, even considering to pay Christian Village $440,000 to buy property that the city didn't damage, versus spending $262,000 in researching for some water. I said, what is the problem with this group? We need water. We don't need to be looking at investing money and buying land where the city didn't do anything to, to damage that land. So, I just think this has been good discussion, but I would have loved for y'all to have had this discussion outside of the citizens of San Angelo. I think you, Mr. Fleming, made some good points, and that's exactly the way a team has to work. We have to be able to confront each other and say what needs to be said, but I would rather y'all have done this outside of our hearing and worked out everything the way you worked it out here before us today. I mean, I wouldn't have considered that's being swept under the rug. You know, if Ms. Farmer felt like she had to go public, I wish, Ms. Farmer, you had made them aware that I'm about to call the TV station and I'm gonna go public. Because, I mean, I don't think that that was necessary. That's personal opinion, and this is my personal comment. So I just, you know, I hope y'all can work together. We voted in a group of people that we felt like could do a good job in running our city. I couldn't vote for every one of you, but the ones that I could, you know, I did. So y'all get together, work together as a team for the best thing for San Angelo. And infighting is not the best thing for San Angelo. Work with your city manager, because I know y'all probably spent $300,000 or more in a search for him, then relocating him and his family. And I'm sure he's here because he wants to be. He didn't have to accept this job. So let's stop putting in the paper that we want to discipline him or terminate him or something. Try to work with him, and then if he violates, you know, whatever his job description is, then talk about that. But get on with the business of managing the business of the city of San Angelo and finding us some water.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Billy, one thing I want to say, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
One thing I want to say, thank you for that, but I can tell you that the majority of the members up here have full faith in Daniel. I feel that's pretty, I think that the majority of us have full faith in him. And that's why I'm so upset about this thing. I truly don't think that this whole deal was a cover-up. I think this was a screw-up. They messed up, and it was accounting error, and it was a big accounting error that hopefully will never, ever happen again. But I want to move on this deal and just, let's get it done and move on. Let's get some water.
Do I have any other further comment from the public? Come forward, Mr. Cortez. State your name and you have the floor, sir.
My name's Gary Cortez. I've been back there thinking real quick, and we move forward, and what's to keep this from happening again keeps coming up in my mind. A big mistake. I don't know if a provision in the employment contract of the city manager, the heads of staff of the different departments, if maybe some kind of clawback provision ought to be put to the powers to be at the city level, council, y'all don't get paid very much. Stating if there's a misfeasance or a malfeasance that the city would have the right to go back to the previous folks, and if it can be proven that we can go after their retirement, their funds, and that kind of deal in a contract would maybe hold their feet to the fire a little closer. And if we have a transition from city manager to city manager, like we have, maybe the previous city manager would use a little more due diligence in watching that the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, and that something like this wouldn't fall between the cracks. Now, maybe it's already in the employment contracts. I don't know what goes on if there's Mr. Valenzuela has to sign, if there's a contract of, that he has agrees to when he becomes city manager of the city. But moving forward, it seems to me that something in that form would look a little closer before we just say pack up and leave San Angelo. Make sure that everything's passing on to the new city manager in a thoughtful manner.
Thank you, Gary. Good comment. And I will add that it has been established as rule already that the city manager will sign no contract, period, until it has been through legal staff. Had it gone through our legal department, this would never have happened, but it did not. Her signature was not on that contract. We will never, the city manager will never sign another contract without it going through legal first. Any other public comment? If not, I want to make this clear that this is listed as number 13, which is a single agenda item. We are dividing this item into two categories. The first category that we are working on is that we approve the expenditures for phase number 1. We will come back in with a separate motion that will take us into phase number 2. This first motion is for phase number 1, to take care of the contract that we have already signed and are obligated to. So I wanted to make that very clear, and you have that clear in your motion, correct? Have I done everything correctly, ma'am?
Yes, so we're ratifying, and it's the second part of item number 13.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
it might be helpful if you read that. Okay, or reiterate that if you wish.
So what you're talking about, pardon me,
To repeat the motion.
read number 13 again?
No, the motion that you're making, if you wish, you could restate, it's one item, what you said, Mayor, and you're saying that you're splitting that item into 2 separate motions. So you've made that clear.
Yes, ma'am.
Proceed.
Johnny, will you put that in your motion, sir?
I will gladly put that in my motion.
Okay, we're dealing with one. Are we through with the comments? Then I'm going to call for the vote. All of those in favor to go ahead and pay our contract that we are obligated to, this is part 1, phase 1 only, as the motion has been made, please say aye. Aye. In fact, raise your hands if you're for it. All of those opposed, say nay. Okay, we have 6 ayes, we have 1 nay, and I am calling for a break, and it is 11:01.
Mayor, if we might, there's another part of this item that requires a motion, which would be for future funding for cities' continued participation in the agreement. That is
Okay. Does anyone wish to make a motion, and this will deal with phase 2, that we continue to remain a partner with Abilene and Midland in the West Texas Partnership in the search for confidential water sources? Will anyone make that motion?
I'll make that motion, as long as we put in the provisions that it'll come to council before we make any of the payments on that. Right, we've already talked about that.
You want open session action on
Yeah,
these payments?
let's do that where it's out in front of everybody else.
Let's keep it
Those
open.
checks that'll be.
We're not hiding anything, let's keep it open, I agree with that,
Do
Ronnie.
you just want a report, or do you want approval from council before the payments are made?
I think Ms. Farmer would feel a lot better if we just approve it, or we vote to take action on each one.
We'll do it.
We realize that this is going to be approximately $1,016,783.
At least.
At least. But each and every payment will be brought to the council for discussion and for approval before payments are made.
Now, Mayor, we have approval on phase 1. Would you like, we're getting ready to make those payments. Would you like those payments also to
Phase
come?
1's been taken care of. We know what the payments are, we know what that's about. We can deal with those in the past. But in the future on phase 2, I think Rodney's motion is a very good one, and I will accept that.
I just want to show our partners that
Yes,
we're truly in with them.
We
We're
are in.
moving forward on this deal. Our most important thing that we, as a council, should be working on above everything is our water situation. We have to get this thing together.
We've got a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion, we have a second. I ask for further council discussion on this. I ask for any discussion from the, Mr. Barton.
One of the things that I would like to, exactly what we are getting for this $1 million. You know, I, being new, am not familiar with the engineering person, the legal person, what phase 2 involves, where we're going, anything about it as far as depth. I have a problem representing the people and the taxpayers when I don't know what the heck's going on. So I want to stay with Tri-Cities, there's no doubt about it, we need to do that, but I want to see what we're getting for $1 million.
I would suggest, Mr. Bartman, that this be handled in executive
Have no problem with that.
because there is the importance of confidentiality. So I believe you are right. And you can make that in your motion if you would like, Mr. Fleming.
How
That
about we
we,
go to executive and we come back and we'll re-bring this up after executive.
after executive day, so that we can clarify the motion?
Yes.
Well, I think that, I know that what you're asking for is a lot of the information that really our engineer can come in and present to you, which is what we want to do on a quarterly basis, bring the engineering and sit down with council members and really give a breakdown of exactly how these monies are being spent going forward also. And I know that the engineer, actually, matter of fact, we have a meeting tomorrow, can come in and do that very specifically and sit with you individually or with a group, a couple of council members, and make sure that that information is very clear.
Well, and not only in retrospect, in future, you know, where are
Absolutely.
we going, where are we headed?
Yes, sir.
Sort of thing.
I agree with you.
And he did talk to us in that last executive meeting
Yes,
about
he
a
did.
lot of the, we can't speak on those things, but
I
remember, a
think
lot of those things were discussed on, out of that $1 million. It's actually $3 million.
So how about if your motion says that we will bring it to open council before we make payments, and before we bring it to open council to authorize the payments, we will have an executive meeting that tells us exactly what we're doing.
Is that all right with you, Don?
I
I'm asking Don, because Don didn't like how it was said worded the
Well,
first time.
like I said, the thing about it is, I have no problem really appropriating a set amount of money. But like I said, with that, I want the information that goes with it. And we have been furnished with some of that in broad sweeping brush strokes, but I want details. I don't want to, you know, pay for somebody that we can get somebody else to do for less money the same thing.
Let me pull my second.
Do you want to pull your motion until we talk about an executive and then come back?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, let's pull the motion. Consideration, possible action on matters discussed in executive closed session. We go back to item number 13 that we spoke about earlier, and we did 1/2 of this and determined that we would pay the debt that we owed thus far. We are also talking about the additional item of going and becoming a member of the West Texas Partnership. As we discussed this in council, there were many questions that were brought out by council, and many questions were good questions. And we need to be sure that San Angelo is getting its third of this partnership. Daniel and I are to meet in Midland tomorrow with the Abilene and the Midland area, the partners, and we have a list of questions we're going to ask them. So, depending on the answers we get tomorrow, I think the consensus is that we want to remain in the West Texas Partnership, that there is definitely advantages being in this, but we also want to be sure that San Angelo is getting its 1/3 of what we spend. So we have decided that after Daniel and I go to the meeting tomorrow, we present these questions, we get the answers, and then next meeting, we'll put it on the agenda, we will discuss this, and we will make a decision. Everybody agree with that? Let's move on then to item number 30 is consideration of nominating a city council member to serve on the Ports to Plains Trade Corridor Coalition. And I have requested this. The Ports to Plains quarterly meeting will take place first week in October in Amarillo. At this current time, Charlotte Farmer is the designee or the board member for this. Last September, we had it was a real sorry detail when Charlotte took this away. I had been the board member for 6 years. Charlotte took it away. I guess the long and short of it is that I want it back. And at this time, Charlotte, I'm going to give you the opportunity to resign and nominate me as the board member. I hope that's the way you do it. That's the easy way, and we'll move on.
Well, Dwayne, I've been on, 10 months. I have a 2-year term. It's a 2-year term, duly elected. I'm not willing to step down. I will at the end of 2 years, but I've not done anything wrong. I have attended the meetings, and you served for 6 years prior on the board, and I don't know why I can't have the 2 years.
Okay, then we're going to go into all of the sordid details that happened last September. I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to bring this up. I didn't want to air dirty laundry. But,
Mayor,
yes.
can we just take it?
Let's just do a vote.
Yeah, let's just nominate it and go.
Let's don't go there.
Let's have a motion then.
I'm going to move or nominate you as our,
Remove.
or remove Charlotte and place you, nominate you. You are a current mayor and you have done an excellent job and did a previous excellent job on this Port to Plains Corridor Coalition. So I'm going to nominate you as a member or a nominee or
Board member?
board member for this Fort Plains corridor. That's my nomination.
Do I have a second? Do I have further council consideration? Do I have public consideration? The motion has been made that Charlotte be removed from the Portage de Plains Board Director and that I be placed in the Portage de Plains as the Board Director for the City of San Angelo. Do I have public comment? All of those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All of those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Raise your hands, ayes, raise your hands. We have a 4-2 vote. Charlotte has been removed, and I have been established as the Portage de Plains Board member. We can, Don, do you want to make the motion to adjourn, or do you want to go back and pick up all these that we passed? Okay. Let's have future items and now consideration of future agenda items. What does everyone have?
Well, Mr. Mayor.
All right.
There were some items that we brought up earlier that got overlooked, and I'm still not clear where they are, but they need to be discussed, having to do with the budget, and I don't know if we can carry these over. I hope we can. One of them was the workers' comp incentive for $220,000, which we were told was not in the general budget, and I don't know where that comes from. And then there was a cell phone increase for $63,000, a Visitors Bureau increase of $100,000, and an Arts Council increase of $63,000. I don't mind talking about those next time, but I just want to call it everybody's attention and make sure that we can.
Okay. Did we want to meet again next Tuesday to conclude the agenda that was started today?
Yes, I'd like to do this.
Johnny?
I'll have to check. I've got something, but see if I can talk it around.
So, Don?
I'd like to meet Johnny. If it would, I don't think it's gonna take that much time.
It shouldn't take but a couple hours.
Yeah, if you can go morning or noon, then we can go from there.
Okay. Charlotte? Next week?
That's fine.
Winky?
When?
Next Tuesday?
What time?
What do y'all say? 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock?
The chamber is available in the morning only, not in the afternoon.
Pardon me?
The chambers is available in the morning, but not in the afternoon.
How about 9 o'clock on the Monday? 9 o'clock Tuesday morning, and we will conclude and finish the rest of this agenda.
And did you want to put the budget stuff on this coming Tuesday or the next regular?
No, he can carry over to next week.
Next regular.
Next week, not next week.
Next week?
Yeah.
Okay, then he needs to add that, the items he was talking about on the next week, and then we will conclude our agenda.
No, I want to add
You want to add one?
I want to add an item for the next regular session, not next Tuesday, but the next regular session. I would like it to be discussed in executive session, the Arroyo project. And I would like the presenters of that project that we had at the last meeting, if we could try to possibly get them there and discuss. We need to move forward on this and do something. We haven't done anything.
Anyone else have anything you want to add? I have one item I want to add to the executive, and I want it worded just exactly as this. It is the policy of the city council that stewardship of the public interest must be their primary concern, and that all of its members shall perform their duties in accordance with federal and state law, city charter, city ordinances, city policies, including the code of conduct and the code of ethics. Violations of such law or policy undermine the public confidence in the integrity of city government and the effectiveness of the city council as a body. And I would like to see that on the next executive, because I think we've had a breach of contract, a breach of conduct and a breach of ethics that I would like to discuss as a council. Is there anything else that needs to be added? Then Don, I'll accept your motion, sir.
Move that we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn, and the second, all in favor say aye. Aye. Nays, we are adjourned. It is 4:41.